So guys, we have Samuel Arms here in my home doing an interview, conversation. I like to see these as conversations back and forth because I think it makes a better conversation. Sam just moved from
Orlando.
Oh, I thought you were in up in
Tallahassee.
Yeah,
I go there a lot for session.
City.
I go there for session, but no one really wants to live there. It's not the most fun city.
Yeah, so, hey, dude, really welcome to the home. Welcome to St. Pete. I'm really glad. I think a year ago I said, dude, you need to move to St. Pete. It's really cool. And your energy is perfect for this area. So I really love having you. It's been nice knowing
Appreciate
you.
that.
And look forward to working with you and getting to know you better. Why don't you explain to my small audience what you tweebs, you didn't resubscribe and retweet and do all that stuff. So I got this little tiny audience for Sam here. Sam, tell everybody who you are and what you're doing here.
Yeah, so I run Florida's largest chamber of commerce for Web3 Bitcoin companies and industries. I started that in 2017, been doing that for 5 years. So I passed 5 bills in the Florida legislature. I've helped people with campaigns. I've done campaign finance, moving money from companies to elected officials to get pro-Bitcoin policy passed. I run voter lists so people know who to vote for, who to walk for. So I do everything that you would think a political consultant would do. And that's kind of always been my specialty, is politics and strategy. How do you move money and how do you move people? How do you get people where they need to be? How do I get money where it needs to be in order for the industry to thrive here in Florida? And that's always been my goal. And we've done a pretty good job at that.
Yeah, a lot of people don't recognize when industries are going through transformation. There's lobbyists. There's a lot of reformists, lobbyists. Some corporations will hire, like at Dynegy, when we were doing the energy thing, we had a lawyer. He was the most commercially astute lawyer I'd ever met, because his job wasn't to get a contract that would, hurt you.
Yeah.
Do all this funny language. His job was to reform the rules of the old world, help reform the rules and talk to legislators and people that say yes or vote on these things, to frame that in Bitcoin's at $1,000. To frame that in a wrapper, if you will, or a package where the regulators and the industry participants, because at the end of the day, the industry participants do have something to say about this. I mean, the best reformation's done if everybody can get in the same room. And that's the way I like to do the lobbying. All the principals get in the same room.
Yeah.
And let's talk about why you would not do this. What are the issues? I love that, because then everyone's transparent. You know what everyone's agenda is and what their defense is going to be. So who pays you? Is a company paying you?
Yeah, so multiple companies pay me through the Chamber of Commerce, and then I'll do kind of like boutique consulting for high net worth individuals or large companies who want to figure out how to be politically involved. So essentially over the past 5 years, I've learned exactly what you need to do if you want to make yourself a political powerhouse in a locale, in a city, in a county, or in the state, or even federally. And so now I don't want to call it coaching, but in a sense it's coaching, where I go, okay, here's the meetings you need to go to, here's the individuals you should bet on, because I view politicians like companies. So instead of the stock market, I'm trading people, right? So I go, okay, this person looks like they're gonna have a good 5 to 10 year run. Here's who I would invest in and why, right? And kind of building out your political portfolio. And so that's been a really effective strategy for certain people in certain parts of Florida who now have gained a lot of political influence.
Can you give any names of
No,
okay.
not as of now.
So just to make it real for the people that follow me, like high net worth guy, how would you work with a guy like me, and what would my driver be to hire you?
Yeah, so the goal would be, how influential do you want to be in St. Petersburg? Do you want to have more control over city council, over the county commission? Do you want to start getting more involved in the political process in Florida because you have an issue you really care about? So let's say that issue is like one of the foundations that I'm a board member on is this intelligence company that realized that they could help find missing children. So then what do? Well, there's money out there at the state level to have the state fund your nonprofit to help find missing children, right? So it's about, okay, what does that actually mean? Who are the political representatives on the county, city, and state level who will help you get that money so that you can accomplish your mission? but it's also about becoming a power player. So money can equal power if it's used correctly, but money doesn't always equal power. The way money equals power is when you treat it like the energy that it is and you start doling out your energy to key individuals. So when people start coming to you because you know you can swing an election because of your war chest, now you have an ask. And my ask is, I don't like how this company is coming in and killing my industry in St. Pete. Or I'm really against offshore oil drilling in the Gulf because I live in the Gulf and that's going to kill my lifestyle. I want to own a group of politicians who will essentially ban that.
Right.
And that's kind of how politics works in general. And it's different in every case, in every scenario, because obviously a company will have priorities, and an individual will have priorities. Some people are just really passionate about certain things.
Yeah.
And so it's just, okay, how do you channel that passion into getting what you want?
How did you move from, you must have always had interest in politics and government.
Yes.
How did you get involved in the Bitcoin piece of this?
Good question. It started in high school. I actually had a buddy, I think in like 2013, introduced me to Bitcoin. And this is like the kid who school's not meant for. He's incredibly smart, incredibly intelligent, but was completely flunking out of everything. And he said, hey, Sam, I actually made you a Bitcoin wallet. And I was like, well, what the hell is that? And so then it kind of picked back up when I was in university. I got set on a project with a buddy of mine to actually educate USSOCOM out of MacDill on how to kill Bitcoin and whether it was being used for illicit activities from drug cartels or like ISIS, right? So I did a research project on what's the game theory behind that, would they do it? And this is back in 2016, you know, you still see the illicit finance conversation coming up today.
Bitcoin's at $300 to $800, right?
Yeah. And so that was kind of my jump start professionally, but then also really taking this seriously. And I also took a different perspective because most people get started in Bitcoin because of the tech. But I believe the best way, if my mission is to overthrow something, is through the culture. And so I started in Bitcoin culture, which means I was looking at the 90s cypherpunks. I wasn't looking at tech, but I was like, who are they reading? Who are their heroes? What poetry do they like? What historical events do they latch on to? Because that gives you, the culture gives you an idea of what the mission of the tech is. And then from that, if you really want to...
What did you, sorry to interrupt you,
Yeah.
but what did you discover in that culture back then? This is 2016.
Yeah.
How did you identify the culture? Because it's a funny culture here, right?
So
Different.
it's very different now because the culture now, as adoption has continued, the culture's completely changed. And so when I was looking at like the 90s cypherpunks, these people were straight up anarchists. But anarchists are different. You can have anarcho-communists, you can have anarcho-fascists, you can have all different, like you can go super far left or super far right on the anarchy spectrum. But you look at like some of the revolutions that they admire and some of the poets that they admire, and you would have like they were all definitely, they hated fiat. They hated the banking system with a passion. They hated what they called American imperialism. They hated any type of non-freedom, liberty, so to speak. But they mean it in an absolute sense.
So all people that look like Jamie Dimon are evil and devils.
Correct. And everyone's just a part of the system. But now we have computers and tech to the point now that, you know, cypherpunks write code. We can use this technology to finally fight back and bring about like true financial freedom, and through financial freedom, total freedom, which means no nation state, no borders, no nothing, just hyper individualism. And that was their ideology. And the common person would look at some of their heroes and be like, oh yeah, that's a terrorist, that's a terrorist,
Yeah.
that's a terrorist. But they view them as freedom fighters. And these are all Americans, by the way.
Well, in their mind, Jamie Dimon is a terrorist.
Correct. Absolutely.
Global
Absolutely.
war terrorist. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm not sure I believe that.
Well, it was interesting because it's been one of the guys whose name I now can't remember. It'll probably come after the interview. I'll remember. I was trying to search him on the internet and I couldn't find anything. He had completely scrubbed his name from everything, and I was like completely fascinated. And what's really cool is some of these old anarchists have like these really janky Web 2.0 websites where they're posting their quote unquote conspiracy theories, their thoughts. And it was really, really fun. But I'll send you this guy's podcast. One of my most prized possessions that I don't share around a lot is I waded through Twitter. I found a Twitter account that had mentioned an individual that I was trying to look for. And I said, do you have any information on this individual who is one of the original cypherpunks? And he found me a SoundCloud of an interview with him in 2012. And it's only half the interview, and I think the SoundCloud's still there, I have it saved, where he's walking you through the history of technology and its progression, talking about things like how Microsoft wants to be evil, but they're too incompetent to be evil, and walking you through what that means. And it kind of came full circle because in Eric Hughes is his name, really interesting individual. He's somewhere in Europe now. I think he fled the US. What was fascinating is Eric Hughes was in some of the same circles as the guys from a certain cryptocurrency project. And I was at the North American Bitcoin Conference in 2017 or 2018. And I remember talking to this guy, and this guy was talking to me about being a part of the original cypherpunks. And I was like, I have a question for you. Do you know Eric Hughes? I've been looking around the internet for him, can't find anything, but really fascinated by him. And he got like dead.
No
like,
way.
Quiet. And he was like, why are you asking me that? And I was like, just curious. And so he was like, yeah, follow me. He brought me like to our own corner and told me like a kind of an info dump on Eric Hughes, what he's up to, what he's in the background, but he's like, no one really talks to him now because he's completely cut himself off. But those people like him are the secret foundations and pillars of this industry. But no one knows that, because now that ethos, I think, is completely gone. Right now, it's more about price going up, getting rich, becoming, pumping the bag, becoming a part of the establishment so that you can live comfortably, as opposed to the Eric Hughes types people who were kind of the underbelly of this culture, which were on the run, techno-anarchists, whatever. And some of those people are still sprinkled here and there, but they're few and far between.
Yeah. It's interesting you said he left the U.S. I think a lot of these guys that may have been beginners are going to leave the U.S. I think now the Binance, the deal the DOJ did with the Binance and the SEC, if I was sitting on Binance and I did something naughty 5 years ago,
Yeah.
I am worried sick every night I go to bed now.
Yeah.
And that's why I tell everybody, hey, these emerging industries, they're so rich in value.
Yeah.
Long term though, why anyone would go rip off, like this industry is full of problems, right? Most people that made any money on mining in the old days,
Yeah.
like how were you making any money making Bitcoin at $500 or $8,000, dude? The only way you were making any money, because electricity prices were exactly the way they were.
Yeah.
Capital costs were a little bit smaller, but it wasn't like these people were borrowing millions of dollars to do.
But you could do it from
mining.
your computer, remember?
Yeah, you could, but you'd probably still in electricity. See,
Yeah.
literally, the people that made the money on Bitcoin at $300 stole electricity, dude. You can't make money at $300. How can you make money at $300?
I think, well, the only counter to that
They're barely
would be,
making money at 30.
Yeah, but
Right?
remember how many Bitcoin could I mine on just my PC when it first came out?
So you're saying the volume in the early, it was so much easier.
It was feasible.
Yeah.
I would say it's actually the same. The profit margins were probably very similar.
I don't think there is a lot of profit margin. No.
In mining,
Yeah.
if it's a game of survivability, so their goal is to just stay alive, and that's why mining's
Stay
consolidating
alive
over
till the
time.
oil companies buy them.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, or nuclear facilities or whatever.
Totally, dude. Big utility.
Yes.
The guy that's long fossil fuel, I'm stunned that people are not figuring this out. The nuclear energy plants, the fossil fuel producers will wait till Cypher and Iris and all these guys just get into their debt load. It's so heavy, and they'll buy them for cents on the dollar. And it'll be accretive to the Exxon and Mobil, and they know how to do refining. They know how to do
Well, and the
data
miners
mining.
won't mind. The miners will be okay with the buyout. A lot of them have already gotten investment
their
from
only
these
exit, dude.
big. Yeah.
It's their only exit.
And they want an exit. They want an exit. And so they'd be perfectly okay with that scenario, which is still like a juxtaposition, because I want to say, obviously, so that's a centralization feature in Bitcoin is the mining, but it is worldwide. It's still so
What do you
spread
mean a
out.
centralization feature?
Just as miners get bought out, like
Yeah.
what happens if BlackRock controls the majority of American miners, for example? What does that look like in the 51% attack scenario? But I don't think that'll be ever be feasible because there's enough miners outside the United States
Yeah, dude.
to counteract that.
That is the
just game
least of my
theory wise.
worries. The game theory thing about somebody monopolizing this,
Yes.
like once you monopolize a product like this and it's on the blockchain, it's going to be so obvious.
Correct.
Like monopolies are really hard to keep going. An oligopoly
Is
or
a lot easier.
Duopoly is
And a
actually
lot more
the easiest.
powerful.
And they are very damaging. I mean, the Visa MasterCard duopoly is the most powerful monopoly construct on the planet.
Yeah.
It's so hard to break
Yeah.
because MasterCard and Visa are both like, hey, we're not breaking it.
Yeah.
You need the third or fourth or fifth or sixth guy to go, okay, shit, I got problems. And someone needs to jump out, right, out of the whole club structure and start, this is what happened to energy, this is what's happening to OPEC, every construct is failing now, as long as you have more than two members. And they're not supported by the U.S. government.
Yeah.
Visa and MasterCard are most definitely supported by the U.S. government.
Of course. And it's hard because the principles of data mean oligopoly or monopoly. Because frankly, the less data you have, the less resourceful and powerful you can be. I mean, that's why the only way to break up a Google, the only way to break up an Amazon is literally go to the data warehouse and say, you only have a third of this now. But it would kill their business model because everything's based on the amount of data they can collect.
I don't think it would kill the business model.
Why not?
I think it would actually, well, if we were talking about reading books and studying history. Regulation, anytime it's gone in and broken these companies up, it's merely made these companies
like
much
Ma
larger
Bell.
than 3x.
Yeah, like
Whatever they divide it up as, these companies tend to do extremely well all by themselves.
correct. Like the
And now you have
telecoms.
now you have four entities to monitor.
Correct.
See, now you've created the oligopoly instead of the one guy to look at.
That's what we did with Ma Bell. That's what
Yeah,
we did
that's
with
right.
the 7 sister oil companies. And what's funny is then they reconsolidate, and then you have to break them up again. That would kill the AI industry, I think, though, because of course ChatGPT is only as good as the amount of data that you have. And I'm not saying that's even a bad thing to kill the AI industry, but that is a way to break up these companies because they're so data-based. All you have to do is say, okay, this entire data server in downtown New York is no longer yours, Google. You don't have access to that data anymore. It has to be spun off to another company. Who knows what data's stored there? I don't know,
Yeah.
right? And you would almost have to do it randomly. But if you really wanted to counter tech, creating
But why would
various-
anyone want to do that? What's the benefit of that? Because
depends if you think someone like Google's a bad actor and you think they just have too much control, right? So how do you attack someone?
well, it'd be like Tesla, though. You can't walk into Tesla and go, hey, well, I want all your data. I want all the data that your shareholders have paid to acquire over the last 10 years. You can't do that.
Correct. Well, but isn't that what they did with the telecoms and the oil companies? They just said, hey, I know you spent money on these mining rights getting this oil. We don't care. Now you're 7 different companies and you can figure out who gets what oil field where.
Well, they did that. Yeah. No, that was, that's many decades ago.
But similar principle, right? If data is the new oil, would you just break it up like we broke up oil in the past?
It didn't really work.
Yeah, because now they're reconsolidated.
Breaking those companies up didn't work. And then I think this is the age of big companies.
Yeah.
There is not going to be any small companies, dude.
Yeah.
Because you can't go hammer Google and then let China gather all the data. But these are. Notice what happened in the energy business when you did that. When you took away the power of the powerful
Went
7.
overseas.
Well, the powerful 7 are no longer the top 10 oil companies in the world.
I know.
They're
Saudi
sovereigns.
Aramco.
They're sovereigns. There is nothing you can do to stop the sovereign. So, probably ExxonMobil fits at number 14 or 18 or something like that. And that's monsterly different. So I think you've had this consolidation, geographical consolidation in energy. I think the same thing's happening with data. And TikTok in China has as much data as Google did on their people.
Yeah.
Probably more, actually. Right?
Well, it's tough because Google works with the Chinese too. So I wish it was more like a nation state model where Google had American interests, where Amazon had American interests, but they where Apple had American interests, but they consistently sell out to the Chinese. So China definitely has more data because they don't share their data with us, but our companies
Yeah.
share it with them.
Yeah. Well,
So-
a little bit like the credit card, like Visa and MasterCard have not been able to penetrate China at all. I mean, it's like they own the
Unless
market.
they give up their ownership, which is what the Chinese always do, right?
Yeah.
And that's
They're
what
not-
they want.
Well, and I don't think China needs them. China's already got a payment system that works really well.
yeah.
So Bitcoin. So what are you seeing, Sam? Like you moved here, you must think there's a lot of opportunity in this 15-year-old industry that's like a little baby, right?
Yeah.
It's really nascent. 15 years is very immature, very much like a teenager, really.
Yeah.
Where do you see the industry going and like the role you're trying to play here? Like where do you see this going in, say, 3 years?
I think the next cycle we're about to have will be the kind of final cycle for individuals to really get involved in a lot of these products and really take ownership and build that generational wealth. But I think the whole goal of this next wave is to wall off your average consumer, because now the cat's out of,
Off? What do you mean?
wall off through regulation, making them go through third parties. You can use the Bitcoin spot ETF because we don't want you to actually self-custody Bitcoin. The companies themselves want to self-custody the Bitcoin where they give you paper Bitcoin. And the average consumer is probably okay with that. Institutions are okay with that because your average consumer doesn't want to handle their own wallet. What's interesting is just the mission of Bitcoin, which is great, of full self-responsibility, your average person does not want and can't handle. And that's perfectly fine. That's not a negative or a positive statement. It just is. So we're about to see, I think, mass adoption.
Sam, you're wrong. You should put all your net worth in Bitcoin and hold all of
That's
it
right.
on a wallet, man. Come on, what's
That's
wrong
right.
with you, dude?
I know.
And by the way, NFT, every property you have,
That's right.
stick those on a
That's right.
wallet also.
That's right.
And you cannot feed the fiat system. You're an enemy to the nation. I mean, what's
Yeah.
wrong with you, man?
Yeah, enemy to the nation of the Bitcoin, I
Bitcoin.
guess, which is a whole nother thing because I'm still pro-American, so people who really hate the dollar, I don't think fully understand what a dollar collapse will look like for themselves and the nation and the livelihood we have here, even though I think fiat dollars are bad and the way we use the dollar is bad. Also, as an American, I enjoy having the leverage over the world, right? And I think, I like America to be powerful. Just a shame we use our power for the wrong things. But I think this next cycle will be, we need to wall off the successful product. We need to keep the current people who are rich, richer. We'll let a few of these famous Bitcoin people in our circle, and like maybe Coinbase or the Krakens of the world will become the new FTXs that are socially acceptable within that circle. And then everything else needs to kind of go by the wayside.
Oh, really?
So we're okay.
So what's everything else?
Whatever the new cryptocurrency is, whatever the new NFT product is, as long as it's launched on our centralized platforms, we're okay because we can monitor them. It'll be more like a stock exchange. Like we have Robinhood, I can buy Ford stock on Robinhood. We know how corrupt Robinhood is, but it would be something I think very similar. And so that now means the promise of generational wealth will be limited because the returns will be more limited. The risk that comes with great wealth will be limited. So it's a trade-off, but it's like a natural progression of where systems and political movements go, right, as they mature. So I think that's what we're seeing through the teenage
How
to
close
adult
do you
years.
think that Bitcoin is near a peak of max capability to provide great wealth to new players? Or old players, really. I mean, you're kind of pitching the story that all this just standardizes, Bitcoin calms down, there's no real wealth generation capability. It's more than just tech.
I think the wealth generation capability declines every cycle, right? And you see that in some of the numbers where the profits you make investing at whatever the new cycle is are lower than the cycle before, right? So that tapers out.
What does that mean, though? I hear people say that, and I don't understand what you're...
It just means there's less money to be made overall in dollars.
See, I look at it this way, though. It means that there's less risk.
Correct. So
And
that's
that
the
less
balance.
risk, dude, that's going to bring in money that you've never seen before from my 75-year-old sister.
Yes. So that means that's the risk. That's literally the balance of risk and reward. The more risk there is, the more reward. So the early adopters who took all the risk, who lost a lot of Bitcoin because the wallet infrastructure wasn't even there. There are people who lost Bitcoin because they got one number wrong on the transaction and it's just in the ether.
Yeah.
Right. But those people have a ton
Or
of
they
money
didn't really
now.
value the wallet, right? That
Correct.
$300, who cares? They didn't think about it being $1 million, so they
Correct.
wasted it. Or they bought an automobile with it.
But now because it's safer,
Yeah.
you have mass adoption. But now it's like, okay, that margin, you're not going to become a millionaire overnight because of Bitcoin. It's like investing in Ford stock. Well,
Yeah.
Ford stock, what's the difference in investing in Ford stock, 50, 60 years ago as opposed to now? Now you can still make money off of Ford stock and you can still invest in it, but is it going to be a game changer? Is it going to be like investing in Amazon in 2001, right? As opposed to investing in Amazon now, right? Because now Amazon's standardized, it's a part of our basic infrastructure almost. Who doesn't use Amazon? It'll continue to do well as a company, I think, for quite a while, but those returns just aren't there. But more people are now like, okay, I know Amazon. I'm happy to use it, because it's safer. And I know that's kind of apples and oranges, but in general, the same human
Well, I don't think it's
principles.
apples and oranges, but I think that like I actually disagree with you. I think this is the best time.
To get in,
Yeah, well, let's.
because it's just safe
Look,
enough,
you've
but
been-
just risky enough.
Well, no, I think that when you were buying $7 Bitcoin, it was complete fucking lottery ticket.
Yeah, risk.
That $47,000 today is literally going to invite more players in, bigger money.
Bigger money.
Much bigger money. Like there's going to be people walk in here. Look, dude, I go in there, I buy 50 Bitcoin at a time.
Yeah.
Like these people are going to buy 500, 5,000.
Yes.
It's $2.5 million wax. There's 400,000 families. That's 30 million Bitcoin. Okay,
Yes.
so like now they're going to look at this. They don't need the $7. I mean, I have dinner with a lady that's got $7 Bitcoin. She will tell you today, 47 G's, much better investment. And the second thing is, how many of these people have you met that bought Bitcoin at $3 and they're walking around with $3 billion and they're still instrumental in the industry, still providing, I'm bringing energy here. It's just not my investment. I'm like becoming active in the industry. I don't know where all these billionaires are.
They're not around.
Exactly, dude.
They don't do anything.
They bitch. I think they bitch a lot, and like I love them.
They have big Twitter followings.
Yeah, yeah.
And they like to say that they do stuff, and I'm sure maybe somewhere there was actually there's a nonprofit here in Florida that I volunteered at in the Panhandle, and it was the first nonprofit to accept Bitcoin. And they got a lot of Bitcoin donations to take care of the homeless. And I remember during that 2017 cycle when it went from I think 1K to about 20, a lot of people said, we're going to finally help the homeless and donate to this nonprofit. Well, those people bought mega mansions, did tours around the United States, did all kinds of fun, useless stuff, got hot wives who now they're divorced from, and that nonprofit never saw any of that money. And now, where does that nonprofit get most of its money? From the government in those counties and cities and stuff. And that's exactly what happens. And so once again, that's the political resentment. It's, I want change. Oh, wait, now that I'm at the top of the power structure, now that I'm rich in fiat dollars, what do I need to change?
Yeah. It's just a level of immaturity. But it's really interesting because I actually think that this is still a very, very robust opportunity to make tremendous wealth.
Yes.
Without massive amounts of energy and without massive amounts of risk.
I know I sound negative, so I completely agree, and I still think Bitcoin is going to be a very good investment for a very long time, probably my lifetime, right? And I think as an investment, everyone should be buying it, but it goes back to, well, what's the mission? Right? Because there's different missions. And so if one of the missions is to change the foundation, create generational wealth, whatever have you, and really take people from this lower class to this upper class, I think that mission is going to subside as it becomes just another basic
Yes, I agree
safety
with that.
hedge.
I agree with that.
And so the safety hedge is still good. Bitcoin will always be good. It's going to keep going up. I think it'll be what we're going to use it for. I was just talking to a Bitcoin developer a week ago, and I love talking to Bitcoin developers because it's like I think it was Tiger Woods would always go back to his original golf coach and say, teach me how to golf, and just go over the basics. So I love talking to a Bitcoin dev because I just go over the basics again just to remember how stupid I am. And every time I'm like, wow, this is life-changing. Yeah. This is incredible because I have slightly different questions and they have great answers. I'm like, this really will be around forever. But what does it mean now when we have products that regulatory institutions, arms of the government are now saying, okay, we're okay with it in this silo, right? And if you're an American citizen, you can buy it, but only if it's in this silo. It's vastly different than when I used to be able to buy on Coinbase without having my driver's license.
Yeah.
I'll never forget that change because when I first got in, it was like, oh, cool, I can hook up a bank account. Bank of America wouldn't let me. I had to use a credit union. And I would just buy Bitcoin. I got a politician to buy it. And when the politician was buying it, they were like, Sam, it's asking me for my driver's license. I was like, oh, holy cow, really? And it changed that quick to where I was like, oh man, KYC's coming.
Yeah.
Which is good and bad.
Yeah,
right?
I would have never gone on without that requirement.
I know, but I did.
See, for me, I'm like, oh, you're not asking me for any data? This is weird.
Yeah.
Like, you don't do that in Vegas?
No.
Try to play a game in Vegas, okay? Now, I know there's not a law that says you got to provide your license, but you're not going to get those cards dealt to you, dude.
Yeah.
Until you show your card.
21 or over, right?
Yeah,
or
like,
18.
I mean, I don't really get it, okay? Now, I do get it if you're trying to avoid taxes.
Yeah.
And everybody I've ever known in my life, dude, that avoided, evaded, and played the game with taxes, every one of them said, man, I wish I wouldn't have done that.
Yeah.
Everyone.
It's
and they
never
are
worth
coming,
it.
dude. They're coming.
It's
You're
never
not going
worth
to come
it.
back into the United States. If you really look at what happened to Binance, how the hell did they pull that off, dude? What did they have on this guy? Because, I mean, he's sitting in America right now, right?
Yeah.
He did not have to come back here.
No.
What was the pull? I mean,
There's something geopolitical there.
totally, dude. Totally.
And I think that's what people miss is this is now a geopolitical institution. I think FTX was geopolitical. I think Binance is geopolitical. I think
Well, when you say FTX was geopolitical, you mean that it was...
I have no doubt that FTX was being used to fund various things that our government wanted to fund, and it was an avenue for that. How did Sam Bankman-Fried... I remember people were telling me, oh, he got rich and famous off of arbitraging certain markets. I doubt that was true. I became aware just from talking to people in the industry about some of the shady stuff that they would do that was industry accepted. I think what happened is FTX was not meant to blow up. It did blow up because of the people at Binance, and then our government had to save face. Sam Bankman-Fried, I think they just recently were like, oh, 6 of the charges are nil now. Yeah. Right, because government and power is all about rewarding
the politician giving.
Yes,
they dropped that, huh?
Yeah, so
funny that they would drop that one.
Yeah, so politics is about rewarding your friends and hurting your enemies.
Right.
And our political system is very good at that. They only hurt their friends when it's either out of their control or there needs to be an appearance that, hey, yes, he was a bad guy.
We did our part.
Yes, but then it's kind of a soft slap on the wrist. We saw that during the 2008 financial crisis. How many of those people are still walking around, right? The big banks who are responsible for a lot of these misconstrued incentives, and even government played a part in making those incentives. But I think government finds avenues to get what they want, and I think crypto and blockchain and Bitcoin was for a period of time a useful avenue for some of these people. I don't know if it still is, and I think we're still seeing some of the cleanup around that. Somehow Binance plays into that, but I don't know how. But that's just like what my gut tells me.
Yeah, I've always thought that FTX was a deployment by the government to basically turn the entire industry into a total circus, make it look really embarrassing, and create exactly what you've created, which is, okay, I'm stepping in now to control this place.
Well, I've
never seen anybody make so much progress in 4 years, ever in my life. I've been doing this my whole life. That
Who
guy
wears
was,
a hoodie and
he wasn't even cool looking. He looked like an idiot. And like, how did he get all these meetings? Okay, like this thing was set up so fast and easy for him.
I think it was meant to centralize the space,
Bingo.
but
Bingo.
due to incompetence, now government has to save face. And what government's good at is people in general, they have this idea that there's this room of really smart people who plan everything.
The cabal.
The cabal. And maybe that's true, but what I think happens is there's a group of people who say, let's do this, but what they're really good at is adapting to situations and still getting what they want. So FTX collapses. FTX probably was not meant to collapse. I was looking at Elizabeth Warren's Twitter. She didn't tweet about the FTX collapse until like 2 to 3 weeks after. So those 2 to 3 weeks, she was like, what do we do? How do we save face? What's the plan? And in that 2 to 3 weeks is when they figured out, okay, we'll separate ourselves. We can actually use this to now regulate the industry how we wanted it as a talking point instead of centralizing it. So government can do an about face sometimes. And so I think the original plan was centralization. That all screwed up. Now they're like, okay, you're right. It is a circus. We need regulation. So either way, it's a win-win for them.
Yeah. Well, they'll take what they can get.
Yeah.
I actually like all the noise because I can see through it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just noise.
And it's fun.
Yeah, but it keeps the price down.
Yeah.
It keeps my brother from coming in the space.
Yeah.
You know, and it's kind of funny because he's one of these guys where he'll look at it and go, why would I ever not hold my own coins? Like, I can go invest in the banks all I want, dude. I do that every day. But like the benefit to him is that he can self-store. He just doesn't understand the product, doesn't understand the technology.
Does he want to, though?
No, and he shouldn't need to.
Yeah,
he
that's
shouldn't
true.
need to
That's
understand. I drive my Range Rover 120 miles an hour, dude. I have no clue how it works.
Yep.
Zero.
I don't know how electrons work, but I turn a light switch on.
Come on, man. Like, there's a lot of stuff I do, okay? Like, I go get in my pool, and it's got electricity in it. I turn the jacuzzi on. I actually do every time I turn it. I'm like, I sure hope I don't get electrocuted here.
Yeah.
But I do it every time. I trust a lot, right? A lot. If you trust yourself in an automobile and you do not at 100 miles an hour with your kids in it, and you don't really know, why are you asking how a blockchain works?
Yeah.
Seriously, man. I get in an airplane, dude. I have no clue how the airplane works.
I know. Yeah, you saw the Boeing window or
I just
thing
trust
just
the
flew
pilots.
off.
Like, dude, do you want to die today? Because I don't want to die today, okay?
Yeah.
I sure hope you don't go crazy. Well, I mean, it does happen, right? See, I think all this regulation is going to be very, 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 very promising for the industry. And that the noise from the pioneers who wanted this anarchist, the only way we get the Bitcoin standard in the next year or two is a Mad Max event.
Yeah.
And like, who wants that, dude?
People
Who
say
wants
they want it.
bro?
People say they want it,
No,
but
they
I
don't
don't.
want Mad Max.
They don't understand the entire quality of life of America is built on the dollar. And once again, this isn't me being pro-dollar, but it just is, right? The fact
Well,
that
you're pro-dollar.
I'm pro-dollar in the sense
the dollar's
that
going to last a long, 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 long time.
I think so. I think it'll
Oh, for
change.
sure.
I was one of the smartest guys I listen to is this guy named Jeffrey Schneider. He's out of West Palm Beach. I've been following him since 2017, and he's so interesting because he was talking about how the dollar is really just a radio network, and it doesn't even matter in the global market if you have dollars on the balance sheet that are actually there. Like when the Bank of England says, oh, we have dollars, they don't have the dollars. They don't even care if they have the dollars. They just have an IOU of an IOU of an IOU of an IOU. All that matters is that it's lubricating the market.
Yep.
Right? And I'm like, what the hell is this thing? I don't think we've ever seen anything like Bitcoin in history. I don't think we've ever seen anything like the dollar in history either. It's
a good point, actually.
It is not just a fiat system. We have never had a government control the foundation for a world economy, right? Before in Rome, we had gold, but still Rome didn't control the gold. Maybe they went on fiat and debased the gold standard. Entirely different than the dollar fiat system that we have now. And you see that in the fact that we will cancel countries like Iran and Russia from the SWIFT system and saying, you're sanctioned with dollars. And those countries are still transacting in dollars.
Totally.
The BRICS countries still transacting in dollars. Everyone needs dollars because somehow we've built this system that does not function without it.
Look, dude, ISIS was doing it with crude oil barrels. And you remember that?
Yep.
$40, $50 discounts on crude oil. And people are like, okay, can't buy any crude oil from ISIS. Are you serious, dude? India will buy all that at a $40 discount. Goldman Sachs in a special little unit in Switzerland.
Yep.
Dude,
Yeah.
they'll do some hedges. They're going to call a guy like me up or some guy with an Iranian name, and it's going to be a broker and an agent and an LLC and a shipping company. It's going to just like, it's a little bit like the whole Ukraine thing, which drives me crazy. Okay, we can't send any T-10 tanks to the Ukraine directly from America. So what we're going to do is we're going to have the Germans send their old ones to Poland. Poland sends theirs to Turkey. Turkey sends theirs to Ukraine, right? And now Germany, the best credit on there, gets to buy another 1,000 tanks from the United States of America. Brand new, man. Print some dollars, right? It's such a fucking Ponzi scheme to make people believe that we're not just moving assets all around.
Yep.
Is like, that's the real game, right?
Yeah.
That's this whole movement of money around. Like you said, hey, it's just like a ledger, and they change the ledger at will.
Yes.
That's what I love about Bitcoin. If someone does change it, at least we're going to be able to see it.
Yep.
Right? And your CBDC threat, I'm like, I'm not so worried about the CBDC because my sister's going to have the option to go into 108 CDBCs, right? 108 countries are working on it. And she's going to have the option to buy Bitcoin.
Yep.
And which one do you want to do? Private blockchain? No transparency, or public blockchain?
As long as that option's still there to buy Bitcoin, it doesn't get forced underground, for example. But I think
Has that ever worked?
it doesn't.
Forced
depends.
gold underground, I'm still going to have my gold. Forced US dollars
depends.
underground, I'm still going to have my US dollars.
It depends. Government's okay with creating black markets as long as there's not mass adoption, because a black market always still a minute group of people that they can handle. So government doesn't mind black markets; they just don't want mass adoption. And we see that all the
We
time.
have mass adoption in black markets in drugs. We have mass adoption in US dollar being used for all types of illegal, totally bad things.
Yep.
From slaves to children to drugs to murder. I'm going to name it, dude. It's
Yeah. But it's not a
prolific.
mainstream quote unquote market. I mean, even with the drugs, I guess the most recent example would be now marijuana is accepted, and that went from black market to like being out in the open now, even though there is still like a black market for it, interestingly enough. But you still have harder drugs like fentanyl, meth, which we say, no, we want to force that underground, right? And even though that underground market is very wealthy, very powerful, enriches a group of people, we are paying that price to keep it underground so that 80% of people don't do it. And that's how government thinks. Not saying that's the correct way of thinking, but government wouldn't mind shooting themselves in the foot to ban something so that only 20% of people use it and not 80%, because they can handle 20%.
Yeah, I just haven't never seen in life the bans work. The prohibition doesn't work.
It doesn't. It depends what you mean by work, because the goal isn't always to. I don't think the goal is to stop it, right? The goal is to suppress it so that you can more easily track the avenues in which it's used. So when we banned alcohol, it didn't stop alcohol, but it limited it to certain places in Chicago, certain places in Florida, all the trade routes that were underground, which are where other crime goes. If you look at the black markets in Africa, we traffic people, ivory, drugs, all in the same routes that we are well aware of.
Sure.
So by creating...
they're trading routes.
Correct. So when you ban something, you just force it over here.
Yeah.
Which is fine, because then if we really wanted to ban it, why don't we stop it by shutting down those trading routes? So that shows you some of our involvement in that. But the goals of government are sometimes very weird, because they don't always care about banning. They care about isolating and pushing in this direction.
Yeah. The challenge, I would just challenge back that they've lost control of Bitcoin. And all they're going to do, let's say, I think the only way they can do what you are proposing is, hey, you cannot have your own wallet.
Or they make it too
They cut off all the lines from the
uneasy.
banks.
They say a bank will only service you buying Bitcoin if it's an ETF.
Yeah, I got it.
You know.
Okay, but you know what that's going to do? It's going to drive me into a big old boat. I'm going to go hang out in international waters, and I'm going to go, fuck you, I'm done.
Correct.
I mean, we're starting to see it. Like everyone 15, 20 years ago were telling my brother and I, nobody's going to leave California. Well, we did.
Yeah.
We did, dude. And we're always early. Like, I'm always the early guy.
Yeah.
And now, what are you saying? Everybody's leaving California. Any money's leaving California.
Well, but California wants you to leave.
Well, good. Good.
You
Then
know,
all the poor people, all the middle class can pay the bills for the fossil fuel power plants they don't
Correct.
have.
Yep.
For all that green shit they say they want, but they're not willing to put up wind. For all the clean, dirty water they're going to be drinking, all the people walking in the streets of San Francisco
Correct.
and Oregon and shooting heroin because there's no cops, dude,
But if
to police anybody because there's no taxes being paid.
the interesting perspective, which is illogical but also logical, is when you care about power, you don't care about who you're forcing out. So, and you see that in politics at large. When a red state tries to ban abortion, it's not just for morals and ethics, so they would say. It's so that you force people who are pro-abortion, who are normally Democratic, out of your state. When you're a Democratic state and you're doing things like increasing taxes, you know who your voter base is. If I want to be a politician who's a Democrat who's in power forever, good, leave, because I don't want you ruining my voting margins. And it's really bad because that's how you ruin a country.
Yeah.
But if you care about power, that's how you do it.
Yeah. Yeah, but it only that has a very short shelf life.
Well, we'll find out.
Yeah.
A short shelf life, is that 10 years? Is that 30 years? You know, I don't know. How long will Gavin Newsom be in power in California? How long will
It won't be longer than 8, right?
Well, how long will it be like the San Francisco mayor cabal, right? It was Nancy Pelosi, it was Dianne Feinstein, now it's Gavin Newsom and his network. His network could remain in power for 30, 40 years, right? It kind of already has through that network. So how much longer, even if it's not Newsom?
Well, I just maintain that it's you can't stay on the slope you're saying. Like California will just implode. There will be no money there.
But what does that look like? Right.
It looks like every other parasite that eats its host because it's all it feeds on.
As long as
the model is built on eating the host.
But as long as and I don't know, I agree with you, but I just don't know the time scale because, for example, sanctuary cities are being overrun.
Would you consider moving to California?
No.
Exactly.
I would tour there, right? Because it's beautiful.
Yeah, it is beautiful, but it's not worth what they charge you. And like, there's no way I'm going.
Yeah.
There's no way my twin brother's going.
Yeah.
Now, he bought a big property there. I'm not sure he's not rethinking that.
Yeah.
But I don't think anyone's going to go invest in that cesspool and go, well, gosh, it's going to take Gavin and his team another 30 years. Like, dude, I don't want to be there. I'll get on a boat and go somewhere.
But if you're a like-minded person and...
Yeah, awesome. Good for you guys.
They'll go over there.
Live in a trash can.
Yeah. Well, and they won't
policing.
live in the trash can.
Without
That's
any
the
order.
thing. They won't live in a trash. They'll live in their walled-off cities, and it'll be just like the rest of the world, where you have a upper class and a lower class, and that's it.
Yeah.
And that's what they're creating. That's why I can't stand it.
But the upper class won't stay there, man, because the lower class will sooner or later rebel. They will start knocking down. Look, I lived on Doheny, dude, like in Beverly Hills. People are walking into people's yards now, $12 million homes, and just walking in, taking shit. So that's the problem. Well, like, people either prosper and come up, or they get into danger conditions and they start going crazy. And it's not because they're crazy, it's because they're trying to survive.
But the problem is then they leave and they go...
They don't leave. Those people don't leave. See, that's the problem.
Which ones? The
degenerates.
No, the degenerates don't leave, but the people who want to flee that leave, but then they create the exact same scenario where they flee, right?
Yeah. Yeah, well, they're not going to do it here very easily.
No, and that's been one of the more interesting shifts, is because we stayed open during COVID. Yes. It changed the political makeup of Florida.
Yeah.
And that's when Florida really became a solid red state, was because of that. And that's why DeSantis' margin his last election was so huge, was specifically because of that event. And COVID now is a good example of attracting voters to kind of secure what kind of user base you want. Because I had friends who were like, do not go to Florida, you will die there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? And so they wanted to stay locked down in New York. They wanted to stay locked down in California. Who do you think they're going to vote for the rest of their life? And then the people who came to Florida, who do you think they're going to vote for the rest of their life?
I had people from Michigan come here and they're like, I mean, presidents of banks, right? Wow, COVID doesn't exist here.
Yeah.
It's incubated or something. You know, they were like fascinated, man. Their universe was like
completely different.
Don't go out, can't go out. Like I wasn't invited to go there. I was uninvited to go to parties. I'm like, wow, you guys are freaking, like people are freaking out here.
Yeah.
Florida, I think, did really well. I'm not a big fan of DeSantis and his run for presidency, but what he did here.
You like him as governor, not as run.
I think he stretched out too far, too early. Somebody told him he should go run for president. He's going to get wiped out by Trump, man.
No, next Monday. Next Monday's the Iowa.
Is that the deal?
Yeah.
I'm surprised some of these guys hadn't already dropped, you know. Should have dropped.
Presidential campaigns are ways to gain influence and money launder.
Yeah.
Tim
really?
Scott,
Money launder?
Yeah. Tim Scott. Look at where Tim Scott's political contributions went to. Tim Scott used his presidential bid to strengthen his network in South Carolina. And so all the money that he funneled from across the country to fund his presidential bid, he hired and doled out money within South Carolina for consultants. Those consultants now owe him big. So he was using it as a funnel, so he's now more powerful in South Carolina. That's what presidential runs are for. Nikki Haley, completely useless. Don't know why she's running. But I do know,
warmonger, right?
But I do know why she's running, because she can make a lot of money running and then enrich some of her friends so that when she drops out, which we know she will because no one likes her, she's still winning because now she has an entire group of people who owe her for the money she's made them. So presidential elections are very good for loyalty building your network. People don't always understand that.
Yeah. It's just strengthening the little cartels.
Little cartel that they have.
Inside there, yeah. Little clubs.
And it's unfortunate for the people that actually believe in certain of these candidates. Like, I don't know
Should we all just stop voting?
No, more people need to. Well, I don't know. A great question that I don't have an answer to. Because I know if I don't vote, bad people will vote still. And then, so that's a dangerous game to play. A lot of people think like that. Certain people will go, okay, I don't like either candidate, so I'm just not going to vote. And you see that in presidential election cycles. But
that is a vote, though.
It is a vote.
It's
a vote to leave it up to the other people to decide for you.
Yeah. A friend of mine was here just the other day. I said, hey, what are you going to do on the vote? He said, I'm done. I'm not voting. I said, oh, you're definitely going to vote, dude. I'm driving to your house, and I'm going to pick you up.
Yep.
I don't care who you vote for. I'm certain when you go into that ballot, you are not going to vote for Biden. And you're going to end up voting for Trump. I know you don't like the guy, whatever, but that's who you're going to vote for because I don't want to go to war. I don't want to go to war. Quite frankly, kill Bitcoin. Kill Bitcoin right now. I don't want to go to war. I'm tired of my tax dollars harming other people.
Yeah.
Like I think we should be done, man. Vote for the guy that's not going to have war, that's the toughest negotiator we possibly can. Nobody fucks with us. And I think that, I just don't see anybody doing that other than Trump. I like Vivek.
Yeah. But he's not running for president.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
that's not a...
Yeah, and I think we need a guy that's only got 4 years and he can really tear the place up. Tear it up, man. Just, and I'm not even sure he can do it. I think the system's so sick that it may just have to become so obvious to everyone how psychopathic these people are, that we rebel. I think we go to civil war, dude.
You think so? They're coming out with a movie about that.
I think we're there.
Everyone talks about it.
I believe we're at civil war right now because when you can't have Congress and Senate talk to each other in any kind of civil manner, dude, and there's all kind of subterfuge and fucking weird shit going on, it sounds and smells like civil war.
Politics is warfare by another means, right? And so I've heard some people say we're in a soft civil war, whatever that means. But
which, by the way, I think would be worse if we go to a hard civil war. It's worse. There's rioting all over the place, man. You could build a case there's civil wars all over this planet right now.
Sure.
Right? There's clearly people are rioting. They're getting sick. This Palestinian-Israeli thing, it's a big deal, man. People are talking about Jewish people in a way that I've never heard, okay? That was a topic.
Yeah.
And, you guys want to hate me for saying this, but before it was this is not a topic we're going to talk about. And the Palestinian people are revolting, going, hey, wait, these people are people.
Yeah.
You know, that little kid didn't invade your country.
Yeah.
He didn't parachute. 8-year-old didn't parachute in. Dude, what are you doing? Like smashing these people. There's just so much noise everywhere. I think people might just get fucking fed up and start, you know, getting violent.
I think we're going to return to the normal, which we've had, you know, a century of relative peace on Earth because the U.S. and the U.S. dollar and the U.S. military has kept everything even. But as that's breaking down, everyone's looking around and going, oh, I can get away with this. Russia can get away with invading Ukraine. Venezuela can get away with taking territory from, I think it's French Guyana or Guyana, over an oil field in the sea. China's looking probably not at Taiwan, but maybe some Himalayan territory, right, to take from India. As soon as that order collapses, we return to nature, which is just a free-for-all, right? What's keeping Turkey from invading Greece? They've got 5 times the population, and they're looking to expand because they're consistently talking about the rebirth of the Ottoman Empire type deal, right? You have these...
The problem is they're going to inherit countries that have no resources.
Sure.
Like, what are you buying?
Yeah.
A bunch of people that are
But
hungry.
they don't necessarily care about that. They care about you know,
the
epic of history and...
But you got to feed them.
Sure.
This is the problem with taking over, right? Taking over people, like you got to feed them, you got to keep them happy, you got to create...
Or you just kill them all, which is what they did with the Kurds anyway.
Well, yeah, that's scary.
Yeah. But
what do you think, what odds would you give that in the next 24 months, well, I'm going to ask you some little quick questions here. In the next 24 months, what odds would you give that we were in a global conflict? Like global, like, hey, people are really shooting shit at each other and all the countries are angry at each other and there's insanity going on.
I don't think we're there yet. I think everything's the Trump show, and everyone in the world in America is waiting to see who wins in 2024. And I think that will be a seismic event. No matter who wins, that will determine what other countries are going to do. And to be honest, I don't know what that even means. I don't know if China would rather invade Taiwan under Biden or under Trump. I don't know if any of that matters. But everyone has the feeling that as long as...
Who would you want to play a game of poker with?
Trump or Biden?
Yeah.
Biden wouldn't be able to even play the game.
Exactly.
Right. But that doesn't matter because Biden's not the one running the country, right? So I guess...
But his administration, you'd rather play with the Biden administration's team poker player
No,
than
I'd rather play
Trump.
with Trump. Absolutely.
Against him. You'd rather play against
Oh,
Trump.
you mean like if I wanted to win?
Dude, yeah.
Or have fun?
No,
Okay,
win.
because I was thinking of having fun.
You want to win. No,
If I wanted to win, yeah, I'd play with Biden. I'd play with Biden
Totally,
all the
dude.
way.
You wipe his face, right?
Yeah.
And everybody on his team, man, you'd rip them. They don't know how to play fair.
Well, but I never want to call them incompetent because they just have different incentives. And what I view as incompetence, which is sometimes very logical, because I'm thinking, what's good for America? What's good for the American people? They're not thinking like that.
No, totally.
But so what they're doing...
Do you think Trump actually believes, hey, I'm here for the good of America, just not me?
Yes.
Yeah, I do too, actually.
And I think his ego is his greatest strength and his greatest weakness. I think how he views loyalty is his greatest strength and his greatest weakness. And you kind of have to take that as it is, right? And I think now he's created within his own ego that he is bigger than himself. He probably believes he represents America. And that doesn't matter to me because as long as he's doing what I want him to do, then that's great, right? I don't care what his ego says as long as he's doing what I want him to do, right? Whereas the Biden administration, I think, is more concerned about just keeping the current political power structure in power, no matter what, for as long as they can uphold it. And they don't mind if that means selling out to the Chinese or the Russians or really anybody. They're okay with, the current American political class is actually okay not being number one as long as they have someone to rule over. And that's why you constantly see them selling out to the Chinese, I think.
What odds do you give that we're going to have an election in November 2024?
I think there will be an election. I think there will still be a lot of media hype around fishy business, what's going on, will it be delayed again, will we know on the day who's actually president, probably not. I think there's going to be probably more chaos than there was in the previous election, because once you kind of break the mold, you just keep breaking it, right? And you see that time and time again. And if back to, I guess, your Civil War comment, you can look at the original American Civil War, which is far different than what a civil war would look like in America now. Completely different. But you see little lead ups, which at the time didn't seem like a big deal, but you have a congressman whack another congressman on the head with his cane and give him like a concussion, right? Like little over, slavery and laws over abolitionism. You see little moves here and there. Southern states took Lincoln off the ballot. Lincoln packed the Supreme Court and said, we now have 10 Supreme Court justices to back my legal authority to do whatever I want.
I didn't realize that people had been removed from the ballot before, like Maine and Colorado did.
Yep.
I did not realize that had happened.
Lincoln was not on the ballot in the majority of southern states. Lincoln packed the Supreme Court. Both sides.
So let's see, Lincoln got assassinated too. So they were trying to get him, not allow him to run, and then he gets assassinated.
Well, this was at the very beginning when in the first election
they were fighting him from get-go.
Because we all knew what was going to happen.
What was going to happen? The slave thing?
Yes, okay. Because that's what he ran. Although that topic is so complex and muddled.
Didn't he have slaves?
Huh?
Didn't he have slaves?
Probably.
I have people that work for me. Are they slaves?
No, I don't think so.
Like Bobby's like worked for me for 15 years.
You have to define.
Her son goes to private school, man.
You have to define slave, which is the big question no one wants to talk about because a lot of Americans are slaves, right? And now we just, instead of making it a racial thing, now we've decided it doesn't matter what race you are, you can all be slaves together, which is just terrible. But in any case, things never play out as we want them to. There's always something different that happens. History doesn't repeat, it rhymes, right? And so I think we're at the point where there's a principle of as institutions become more powerful, they become more brittle, right?
Correct.
And when things are brittle, they break all at once.
And they don't adapt to change at all.
If you look at the collapse of the Soviet Union, how did it collapse? It collapsed overnight. It collapsed in a period of a few years. People thought the Soviet Union was going to last forever. The people in power at the Soviet Union thought it was going to last forever. But what happens? You have a single event.
We're talking Yeltsin to...
Before Yeltsin, Gorbachev.
Okay.
Gorbachev comes in, and he's kind of really the last guy, because Yeltsin's the one who, Putin says Yeltsin gave up the empire.
Yeah.
Gorbachev comes in, and they have this scenario...
To Putin.
Yeah, right. Gorbachev comes in and they have this event, which was it was two borders between an Eastern Bloc and a Western Bloc country, and it was called some kind of picnic. I can't remember. Let's call it the Bulgarian picnic, but it was like the Mid-Atlantic picnic, where they allowed for a day the borders to be open so that Eastern Bloc and Western Bloc people could reunite with their families, but that created a giant airflow of people who then fled and said, hey, this picnic's my way out. And once all those people started leaving, they asked Gorbachev, are we going to start shooting these people? They're literally crossing over the wall. And he said, no, we can't. Like, we can't afford another revolt.
Yeah.
And as soon as that moment happened, everyone realized, oh, the Soviet Union's not as powerful as we thought it was. And that brought about a cycle very quickly that essentially led to the destruction of the Berlin Wall. 3 to 4 years, but it was decades of brittleness being built up to where it all just broke at once. I think we're going to see something similar in the United States government. I don't know if that'll play out with the United States dollar. I think the US dollar could survive the United States government being broken and reshaping, interestingly enough, because of how unique it is and what it is, which I'm not even sure I know what it is. But I don't know what that timeline is because no one does. If you were to talk to people before the U.S. Civil War, they would have said, no, we'll never go to war over this. And that was the Civil War was literally families. I mean, my family history goes back to the Civil War.
I think that's where we're at right now. Well, I see a lot of polarization.
Yeah, but now
polarization, but it's angry.
It's worse because we're not even related. We're not even a close-knit group. Like, we're talking brothers and sisters, cousins, we're literally on opposite sides.
Yeah. No, I mean...
No one talks to their neighbors, so it's like, who cares about going against your neighbor? I don't know who that is.
Totally. Yeah. What do you think the biggest, we'll get back to Bitcoin here and we'll wrap up, but what do you think the biggest challenge or changes that we'll see in the next 18 months with Wall Street, BTC, and kind of how the political movement looks at Bitcoin in America?
I think Bitcoin's becoming more partisan. I think the elections are going to be interesting because, for example, Democrats are becoming the anti-Bitcoin party. That's because Elizabeth Warren has a lot of power. She has a lot of power because if it weren't for her, Biden would not be president, right? That's just a simple fact. And that was all strategic. A lot of people from her staff moved into the Biden administration. She's the reason Gensler's where he is. So she's got control of the Democratic Party. She's going to be in the Senate for another 6 years. She's up for election now. So
Will she win?
Yeah, she's got no primary opponent. No one's even challenged her, which is what people in Bitcoin should have been prepared for, but no one did anything. So,
well, one of Bitcoin's biggest problems is it's decentralized.
Yes, but the centralized parties who are now very political had time to do something if they wanted to, and they have the money to. They just don't have, I guess, the proclivity, the foresight, I don't know. I'm sure there's some reason why what I'm saying is stupid, but I just don't see it yet. So the Democratic Party, I think, will maintain a kind of anti-Bitcoin stance as long as Elizabeth Warren and Biden are in power. And so if Biden wins in 2024, it's going to become more partisan, and you're going to see more pushes from the Democratic side.
Your odds of Biden winning?
It's so unpredictable, I would say 50-50. I really would.
Really?
Yep. I think we live in such an unpredictable world.
I'd give him 25% the guy don't even make it to the damn ballot box on November.
Yeah, I think...
I don't see how you see 50-50, man. I just can't even imagine the guy makes it.
A lot of people said Trump was going to win in 2020. And look where we are now. A lot of people said Trump was going to lose in 2016.
I wouldn't bet 50-50 that Trump's alive by the election. This is how negative I am, dude.
I know.
I think a lot of shit could happen here.
I don't disagree with any of that, but the targeted question of who's going to win, excluding the thousands of variables that in our chaotic times could happen, right? That's why I say 50-50.
Yeah.
Because also Americans have a memory of about 2 months. And so all this stuff happening now, all that matters is what's happening in October. How does the economy look in October? How do people feel in October? That's how they're going to vote in November. So I think we're going to have, Bitcoin's going to become more partisan, and you're seeing that. The red states are the most friendly, Florida and Texas. California and New York are not, right? You're going to see more radical Democrats kind of being more anti-Bitcoin. And I think Republicans, if they're smart, are going to try to take up that mantle. Bitcoin companies are now donating to the Ohio election. Ohio has a Democratic senator. When Ohio went for Trump for like 18, 20 points. If they can unseat them, and then Democrats have a guy in Montana, which is also a Trump state, if they can unseat him, and Republicans take back the Senate, which will be very interesting, that could give Bitcoin some safety. I think a divided Congress is better for Bitcoin, but I think Republicans now are so friendly that if Republicans were able to have all three, the Senate, the House, and the presidency, we'd see some very good pro-Bitcoin legislation.
Do you think that they can do anything to harm Bitcoin at this price? I mean, at this point. Harm it, meaning
define
block
harm.
Well, do anything. Take a penny off of it. Because I think all this energy is wasted energy. When you're only 12% of the market, it doesn't matter what the U.S. does.
I don't think Bitcoin can be stopped in any way, shape, or form. I think their main goal is how do we hoard the money for ourselves and how do we keep it from the average person? And that's going to be their sole focus. Like Elizabeth Warren's banking bill, the goal was kill small banks. And that's exactly what she did. Elizabeth Warren has never been anti-bank. She's been anti-small bank, right? So she wants to do to banks, she wants to do to crypto what she did to banks. She wants to kill the small players, enrich the big players, and then they'll fund her for the rest of her life. And that's why she's so rich. So I think that's the general strategy.
Yeah. Why St. Pete? Why not Tampa? Why not stay where you were? Why not Clearwater? Why
St. Pete's awesome. One, I love the water.
We're gonna get to St. Pete now.
I know.
Y'all come to St. Pete and come give us some love.
Or come here, but maybe don't move here because we don't want everybody.
No, we want everybody here, man.
Florida's got so many nice secrets that it's like the struggle of a Floridian bragging about how awesome it is here, but then being like, okay, but if you move here, you better adapt to our way of life. St. Pete's just awesome. The culture, I was just talking to you about how I went to a disco club, which was awesome. It's very young. It's one of the top cities for Gen Z, the Tampa Bay area, to go to. So it's young, it's vibrant, it's fun. It fits my lifestyle. I love the sun.
You like the airport?
Yeah, airport's easy.
Awesome, huh?
I'm a Florida guy. I need to be near water. I water ski. I go to springs. I love the ocean. I love salt water. I love fresh water. I need nature. But then the people are friendlier. I mean, why would I want to move somewhere where there's snow?
Yeah. Hey, I agree. I love it here. I could live anywhere in the world, man. I mean,
Yep.
I don't know many places we can get this kind of view.
No.
Water that, I mean, it might be a little uncomfortable today, but I can go get in that water.
Yeah.
You know, I can't do that in Los Angeles.
No.
It's cold, so cold over there.
I just love Florida. Florida has
30
everything
minutes
that I
drive
want.
to the airport on a bad day.
Yep.
Big roads. Like, we're going to destroy Miami. You're going to see so many people from Miami
The
get
people
tired of that
here,
crap after 2 years of the Ferrari, what I call the Lambo that can't get out of first gear.
Miami, St. Pete and Tampa are more vibrant for crypto than Miami because the people here are more honest and they're more serious. And so even though there's a lot of money moving to Miami, it's really moving to Palm Beach. Miami gets all the flashy razzle dazzle that gives the industry a bad and kind of stupid name. The serious people move to Miami, realize they hate it, and then they go to Orlando, they go to Tampa, they go to St. Pete, or they go to Palm Beach.
Yeah.
And that's what you see a lot.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you're here. I think
I'm glad to be
you're
here.
going to meet a lot of really cool people here, and anything I can do to help, I'd like to help. And I think, you know, more of a mature lobbying effort on all of these issues is really, really important. I'm glad to see a young guy like you be involved. You're going to have an awesome career, dude. Like, awesome career.
It's fun. It's
Yeah.
fun.
Yeah. Great to see you, man.
You as well.
Yeah.